Hi, Nancy. Good morning, Ruth. I'll wait another minute. Let me, na, na, na. Good morning, Stephanie and Fran. Thanks for joining in. Cecily, how are you? All right, so I took a week off last week, and we're back. So today we're going to talk about forgiveness and you and what's going on in the world. So let me give you some information. Some of this comes from A Course in Miracles, and some of this comes from what's going on. So, to forgive is to overlook. Look beyond error and do not let your thoughts rest upon the error, for you will believe your thoughts and the perceptions you develop. So accept as true only what your brothers and your sisters are, if you would know yourself. Perceive what they are not, and you cannot know what you are, because you see them falsely. So I'm going to explain that. Accept as true only what your brother is, or your sister is, in order for you to know yourself. What is your brother or your sister? What is everybody out there? Everyone out there is spirit. And we tend not to look at it that way. We look at everybody as human. First and foremost, everyone is human. And therefore, since we're human, we're subject to error. That from the get-go is going to get you to think the way you think. So accept as true what you really are, what others really are, if you would know yourself. And if you perceive them as something other than what they are, you cannot know what you are, because you see them falsely. So that premise, that way of thinking, that way of looking at others and actually at yourself, has to be evaluated, has to be looked at, has to perhaps change. We all have a part to play in forgiveness, although we do not yet understand how to overlook errors. We all have a role to play in forgiveness, although we do not yet know how to overlook errors. Let's face it, we are a litigious society. We love to seek out wrong and then punish. We love to find errors in others while overlooking the errors within ourselves. We enjoy our version of justice in this country as though it is not only deserved, but the best system of justice on the planet. Yet it would merely be further error to believe that we do not make errors ourselves, or that we can correct our errors without a guide. A guide like Spirit. Some people call that Holy Spirit. But nonetheless, we need a guide. Forgiveness is a lesson in sharing, which is given to us because we have forgotten how to forgive. And I'll explain that in a minute. Spirit merely reminds us of the natural use of our abilities that we have forgotten. That is, by reinterpreting our ability to attack into the ability to share, Spirit translates what we have made into what God has created. So I'm going to read that again. Spirit merely reminds us of the natural use of our abilities, the abilities that we have forgotten. By reinterpreting the ability to attack into the ability to share, Spirit translates what we have made into what God has created. Now, the verb to make and the verb to create is used very, very precisely in A Course in Miracles. Whenever the word made or make is used in A Course in Miracles, it refers to the humanness of you, the ego of you. The word create is always used in reference to God or the divine or Spirit or Holy Spirit. You have never heard the statement, we are co-makers with God. You have always heard the statement, we are co-creators with God. We are co-makers with ego, but we are not co-makers with God. We are co-creators with God. Spirit translates what we have made into what God has created. In other words, Spirit will always see the brighter side. So by letting go of our penchant to attack and relearning our God-given ability to share from our higher self, Spirit translates what we have made into what God has created. Heaven on earth, instead of this is a living hell. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If we would do this, we will not see through the eyes of ego, rather we'll see through the eyes of Spirit, or if you will, Holy Spirit. So keep in mind that the ego has a plan of forgiveness too. Why? Because we've asked for one. So the ego made one. The ego's plan, of course, makes no sense and will not work. And by following the ego's plan, we merely place ourselves in an impossible situation to which the ego always leads us. The ego's plan is to have us see error clearly, first and foremost, and then overlook it. So I'm going to say that again. The ego's plan is to have us see error clearly first and foremost. See error clearly first and foremost, and then overlook it. Yet how can we overlook that which we have made real? By seeing it clearly, we have made it real, and we cannot overlook it. Make sense? Spirit's plan, however, is to look beyond the error from the very beginning, thus keeping it unreal. Do not let any belief in its realness enter your mind, or you will believe that which you allow to enter in, and you will have to then undo what you have made real. To Spirit, the effects of error are non-existent, and what has no effect does not exist. I'm going to say that again. Spirit's plan is to look beyond error from the very beginning, thus keeping it unreal. And if this is such a foreign concept to you, you may be thinking, how can you do that? This actually happened. This event happened. That guy in Minneapolis was killed. This happened. That's real. Keep in mind the premise of A Course in Miracles. Keep in mind the premise of the Bhagavad Gita. This is all a dream. And if you get so deep into the dream that you think everything is real, you're sunk. You're sunk already. You're starting out from ground minus zero. So Spirit's plan is to look beyond error from the very beginning, thus keeping it unreal. When Jesus looks at anybody, Jesus never sees error. Jesus never sees wrong. So do not let any belief in its supposed realness enter into your mind, or you will believe that which you allow to enter in, and then you'll have to undo what you have made real. Yet to Spirit, the effects of error are non-existent. Why? Because God creates. God did not make error. God did not create error. Error was made by ego. And what was not made by God does not exist. What was not created by God does not exist. So to Spirit, the effects of error are non-existent. And what has no effect does not exist. So how do we apply this to today's situation regarding the tensions that are happening in this country? If you're an advocate of following the news on TV, radio, or in print, then you probably subscribe to the ego's methods of blame, shame, fault, guilt, judgment, and justice the American way. You probably have already bought into a way of thinking where someone is right and thus someone else is wrong. Right and wrong exist. Good and bad are real. Black and white are opposites. And the judgment you subscribe to is always based on less than full information. If you follow any story via mainstream media, you are already slanted, because what has been presented to you is slanted based on the bias of the presenter. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. But I say you do not need to know what is going on outside in the world. You need to know only what is going on inside your world, inside your world of thoughts and feelings. And if you find that you cannot look at a situation without rendering an opinion, aka judging it, then you need to practice forgiveness. Forgiveness, not the American way. Forgiveness, not the ego way, but rather forgiveness the Ho'oponopono way. Ho'oponopono way. Forgiveness, A Course in Miracles way. Forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of others, over and over and over again. And once you become adept at forgiving others, which means you are forgiving yourself, you eventually learn to never blame or see fault or cast guilt or condemn or judge another. You see that other person, and hence yourself, as holy, as perfect, as someone who stumbles but gets up and tries again because there is a helping hand, yours, reaching out to them, picking them up, teaching them so that you can learn. The teacher is the student. And if you ever want to learn anything, you share what you've been taught. And as you share it, you're teaching. Of course, you don't look at it as teaching. As you teach, you learn. As you give, you receive. As you forgive, you are forgiven. So let's do in our meditation a forgiveness exercise. You can do the Ho'oponopono, the I am sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you, over and over and over on a number of different topics that will race through your mind as you're quiet and to yourself. You can just put forgiveness out there into the world. But whatever you do, it's going to affect not only yourself, but others. So you want to do it in such a way that everyone benefits. Everyone is raised up. Everyone is elevated. everyone feels better. So close your eyes. Get comfortable. Start to breathe in and out through your nose a little more consciously. Quieting your mind, opening up your heart, getting into your zone. Keeping your spirits high and lifted. Inviting in your higher self, inviting in spirit. Allowing the feeling of forgiveness to overcome you so that you release as you release others. Stay focused in. Take a deeper breath in and slowly let it out. Bring your hands together and start to rub them, creating heat. Placing them over your eyes. Slowly open your eyelids. Releasing your hands, bringing them to your heart. Have a great day, everybody. Namaste. Thank you.